Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. So I hope today's going to be a bit fun. It's a serious topic, but I hope we can laugh at it. So this is about anti-woke snowflakes. And something I've noticed, I'm sure a lot of you have noticed over the past couple of years, is the gaslighting involved in some of the most sensitive, overly offended, narcissistic, attention-seeking people trying to frame progressives and those who want social change and social justice as the snowflakes. So obviously the term snowflakes, I don't really like it as a way to insult anyone anyway, because the very idea of a snowflake is that every snowflake is different. Like, we're all different, we're all valuable for our differences. That offends them somehow, because I guess it means that other people are of value and there isn't a status hierarchy. I don't know, but they hate it. So obviously it's gaslighting. So I've spoken about Darvo, about how often I've looked at Darvo with, for example, Harry and Meghan recently. You can see it in domestic violence cases, in lots of abuse cases, and a lot of oppression. But we're also seeing it in terms of how woke people are being framed. So you're also seeing it with Antifa. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know if you pronounce it like that. But so obviously being anti-fascist is a good thing to me. But somehow that's been made out to be a really bad thing. Trans activists, if you actually get to what that actually means, it just means people that believe that trans people deserve to have their rights respected. But they're like terrible things now. But it is funny how they kind of make out that their opposition are the ones that are really offended and unable to have debates, when really that's them. So I've got 3 case studies for us today. They're just going to be quick ones because I don't want this to be really long, but I thought we could look at a couple. So I thought we could start with Piers Morgan. So Piers Morgan is a highly obsessive person. Nothing wrong with being highly obsessive. I'm quite highly obsessive myself. But he seems to have obviously recently fixated on Meghan Markle. It seems because if you scratch the surface of that, it's actually really creepy, because it's the fact that I believe he feels snubbed by her. She didn't really want to continue being his friend. I don't think she was his friend anyway. She kind of came over here. I think she was promoting Suits at the time. He wanted access to her because he's one of those people that doesn't really have talent of his own. A lot of these people attach themselves to talent. You know, they're so-called journalists. But they want to be part of the club, you know. But they don't really have much to offer themselves. So, you know, he kind of is quite parasitic in a way. But she obviously didn't want to really be more than, she didn't really want to be friends with him to continue that relationship, and it made him really angry. And we obviously, we in life, we see that and we'd say that's stalking, right? So he was married at the time as well, which makes it even more dodgy. He's acting like the other man, like the wronged man in the relationship. Like, have you noticed that? It's like, Harry took her from me. She was never interested. Why would she have been interested in Piers Morgan anyway? Like, why did he think that? Was his ego so big that he thought that she'd really be interested? I don't know. It's really embarrassing. But you know, he presents this persona as if, you know, snowflakes are, you know, they get emotional about everything, and it's not about emotion, it's about logic, and people need to move on and get a grip, right? But this is a man whose obsession with being turned down by this woman, turned down because in his own head it was more than it was, has turned into something absolutely massive, right? He's always talking about her, tweeting about her. He's involved her father. Like, it's really creepy. If he wasn't a celebrity, I mean, it's creepy because he is a celebrity, but if this was just happening in normal life, you'd call the police, wouldn't you? You'd be like, that's a stalker. But Piers Morgan's skin is like paper, because, and you know this because I've spoken about this before, he was called out on, I don't know what it was. It Good Morning Britain? I'm not sure. Not to be confused with GB News. But yeah, so Good Morning Britain is like kind of, it's like, it's not just a news show, it has like cookery stuff on it and little segments and things in the mornings. And one day he was called out by somebody on there who said, look, I get that you don't like her, but you can stop talking about her. Like, we know that. We know you don't like her, but she's not interested, and that's fine. So just, like, leave her alone. It's weird. And you would expect somebody who's so anti-woke and anti-snowflake and so, you know, masculine and against being a victim, having a victim mentality. This man walked out. He couldn't cope with it. He couldn't cope with, I would have thought, you know, these sort of people portrayed themselves as, you know, let's have a robust debate. Let's not get emotions in the way. This man walked out. He had a tantrum, he walked out. And they were all left sitting there like, wow, you know, he's a lot more fragile than we realised. It's just interesting that it works on so many people, that they think that these people are so tough and so, like, you know, resilient. He feels so victimised by a woman that didn't want more to do with him, right? He feels so victimised by that. And of course he's another one of those ones that courts controversy, because I don't even necessarily think that he believes everything he says. I think it's about outrage, and I think they get a kick, and I think maybe, I don't know, I feel like maybe something's probably lacking, and the attention drives them, maybe. Like, I don't know that for sure, but it's certainly very odd. But, you know, he couldn't handle the shame of being of being called out. Now, when you think about what he inflicts on Meghan, for example, or what she puts up with, and then he's like, oh, you know, they're complaining about their mental health, they're complaining too much. He couldn't even handle another man politely on the television saying, okay, we'll just like leave her alone now. He couldn't even muster a response. He had a tantrum, he seemed upset, and he left. You know, and I don't understand how people believe how people believe that men like him are like these tough guys. They're trying to present themselves as these tough guys. We'll tell you the real truth. You know, none of that snowflakeness here. I've never seen, you know, it's these, they're always like kind of older, like middle-aged men who are the most fragile people imaginable with skin like paper. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being fragile, right? There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. It's actually a good thing to be vulnerable. Not about that topic, obviously. But it's interesting because they build their whole persona on not being that way. And then they blatantly are, right? It's like a mass delusion that people die into. It's really odd. So the second case study I've got here is a man called Laurence Fox. And I don't know, I thought about, would I talk about him or not on here? Because he's someone who really, really wants to be talked about. But I think it's quite amusing to look at it because people don't take him seriously. So if you're not from Britain, so he's kind of an actor. He's from a big acting family, so that's kind of how he got into it. Yeah, he didn't really have to do the hard stuff. Like, you know, he kind of had he's from an acting dynasty, an acting family, and he's claimed he was married to Billie Piper. And I feel sorry for Billie Piper because every time this man says something, I feel like her name gets dragged in. But I do hope at least we're all like, poor Billie Piper. How did you deal with it for so long? Like, how did you handle it? But he's kind of a middle-aged guy who's going. I honestly think the way he's behaving now is like it's like a child who says increasingly bad, naughty words to try and get attention from the adults around them. That's basically what's happening, and that's been his progression. It's quite funny because he's trying to rebrand himself as someone that's really, you know, intellectual and in my glasses, and he's on GB News, of course. All these sort of people are on GB News. GB News can't get people on. They're struggling quite a lot. So anyone who's willing to say something outrageous will be put on that show. Don't ask if he's qualified or not. You don't want to ask that. But he posted something the other day, and it did make me want to laugh. Like, I know it shouldn't because it's a serious topic, but it did make me want to laugh. Okay, so this is what he posted. And okay, I should warn you, like, trigger warning, it's quite horrible what he's going to say, but I'm sure you already know that if I'm talking about this. I'll put a trigger warning on it, right? He did this on the 22nd of December this year. A woman who willingly aborts a child should be regarded in exactly the same way as a man who willingly commits rape. Heinous crimes, both. Now, obviously, like, I don't think he even believes that, frankly. You know, it's funny, though, because he didn't get the reaction he wanted, you know. People don't take him seriously enough to get really angry. Because with people like him, it is like a child that's in the corner of your eye, and they keep doing slightly naughty things because they want you to say, Laurence, stop doing that. And then they get a bit of an attention kick, right? So it's like increasingly stuff. And also, I just want to say here as well, I had a quick look at his Twitter feed, and they say they're anti-victim mentality. They are the absolute victims of their whole story. Like, these people think they're being oppressed by other people using different pronouns. That's what they find. They're so desperate to be oppressed, right? And they project that onto actual progressives. But really, they can't handle not being the centre of everything. Other people having their rights respected is like a deep personal wound to them, and they can't get over it, right? They actually can't get over it. They're completely obsessed. There's another tweet on it. It's good to stir up a conversation, enjoying the fallout. Interesting take. People aren't really engaging. You know, it's quite interesting. It's sad to watch, but it's interesting that someone gets to that point in their life and they behave in that way. Like, it's really interesting. He's gone all like anti-choice, which, you know, I don't even know if he believes that. If so, poor old Billie Piper. I can't believe she put up with that. But I feel like God rewarded her in other ways because she's having an incredible career, rightly so. And I feel like maybe that's because she had to deal with this. It was like, you need something good to happen, Billy. You need something good to happen now. You know, he's retweeted. So Elon Musk recently tweeted this. I'm going to put this on the screen, this tweet, and it says, "They brainwashed you." And it's a mixture. It's very interesting. It's the LGBT flag and the Black Lives Matter flag. It's got some syringes in it, which I assume is COVID vaccinations. CNN, Google, the hammer and sickle of communism, feminism. Also YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. There's a lot of different things on that. These are all people that right. They portray themselves as these big tough guys, right? They feel under threat they feel under threat from LGBT people, from trans people existing, from the idea that there's vaccinations. Like, they feel completely, they're so fragile. What happened to, I'll do my thing and you'll do yours, right? That's not what they're after. If they were the people they claim to be, they'd be like, you know what, live your life the way you want to live yours. I'll live mine the way I want to live mine, and let's just leave it at that, right? It's all about outrage. It's really fascinating. A lot of men think this is really intelligent. I should say it's not just men that are doing this, but it seems to be there's certainly a sort of middle-aged white man who's starting to realise that they might not be so relevant. The world is changing. They're panicking a bit that they're not the main character, and because they're not the main character, now they've grown up being the main character. I think especially someone like Laurence Fox, who comes from like an acting dynasty, they grow up as the main character, and I think realising they're not the centre of the universe strikes them as a huge insult, and then they spend the rest of their lives fighting a crusade to be the centre of the universe again. Like some of us were always not the centre of the universe. It's just what you deal with, They really don't have any tolerance for... They can't they have no tolerance for these things, and they, again, like, I get a lot of ableism, right? So, because I'm into social justice, etc., and I have mental health difficulties, and they act like, that makes you weak or something. Their very idea of weakness seems to be people just accepting who they are and living their lives and not hurting other people. They can't tolerate it. They have to be constantly reassured. If they're living a life where they're not constantly being patted on the head and told how wonderful they are, and also how these are like establishment figures. They want to be rebels though, right? So they can't just be patted on the head. They have to be like rebels. Like, we're breaking through the matrix. Like, what are you breaking through? See a therapist. I wish what you'd be breaking through was the doors of a therapist's office, so you could get some therapy and understand the world doesn't revolve around you. It's just so interesting. You can have a look yourself on this feed. Like, it's just increasingly baiting behaviour, and it's funny because no one's really biting, and I think that's the best way to deal with it, honestly. And I think so. The last example I wanted to use here is, of course, Andrew Tate. I wanted to use Andrew Tate is because it's just, I know it's a terrible situation. He's accused of sex trafficking, I believe, rape, organised crime. His essential job is, he kind of believes himself to be a pickup artist, right? Which in itself is extremely embarrassing, because that whole notion of being a pickup artist is literally, women aren't attracted to me and don't want to come anywhere near me without me emotionally manipulating them. It's such a self-own, right? To say, I actually can't get a woman unless I have to manipulate them. Like, why? That I would have thought that would be a self-own, by itself. But anyway, so this guy who likes to pretend he's being I'm a rebel, I'm being completely oppressed, and a lot of young people on social media are listening to what he's saying. He's very misogynistic. He's quite dangerous with the things he's saying. But I think more than that, when you see him in person, there's this delusion around certain figures. He's not, I don't think he's that bright. I've got to be honest, I don't think what he's saying makes a lot of sense, and I think so many people have fallen over him. Like, Piers Morgan had him on recently, and it's no one going to question why that happened. Like, this man is wanted for rape and sex trafficking, I believe, and Piers Morgan just had him on the show. Really? Like, our media is just, dreadful. That is one thing that these people do have correct, I believe. The thing is, they think the media's, they think people in charge of the media are the left, right? I don't believe that's true. I think we've got a very kind of centre, status quo media that likes to keep things as they are. That I agree with them on, right? It's not a left-leaning... I don't believe that it's a left-leaning slant at all. I certainly don't see that. But this man, he couldn't resist, right? So I believe he's on the run or something. He's wanted for these different crimes. Anyway, he baited Greta Thunberg. Teenage Greta Thunberg. So this grown tough man, he calls himself, like, what is it? He loves being the king of toxic masculinity or something or whatever. Anyway, so he decided to pick a fight with a teenager. He decided to pick a fight with a teenage girl. Love that. The strongest man ever. I pick online fights with a teenager. And she just completely owned him. He was bragging about his cars. And again, it sounds like a child. He's like, look at all my cars. Like, aren't I bad? Look, oh, you believe in climate change? Look at all my cars, Greta. Look. What? It's very, very odd. Right, so Greta replied to him with, yeah, do send those to me. And then she sent a fake email address. And then she sent a fake email address, which was, I believe it was smalldickenergy at something like getalife.com. And do you know what? I would have thought that these incredibly, masculine, strong guys would be able to deal with that. It's just dissenting opinion. It's just someone getting back at you. I swear he just he responded with, "How dare you?" It's so funny. It's so funny. So you get owned by a teenager, and then there was this whole thing about, oh, Greta shouldn't have said that because, small dick energy, it's like body shaming. No, it's not. This is a man whose it's taking his worldview and turning it on him, right? This is a man who believes in, like, the concept of, like, alpha males, beta males, and, like, this is how you deal with women. So I think it's quite a masterful takedown, actually. And then he thought about it for 10 hours. Took him 10 hours. He was thinking about a response to make to this teenage girl that doesn't really care much. She's not writing in capital letters. She's obviously getting on with her own stuff. And then he posts a video response, and it's like, I don't know if he's trying to be like Lex Luthor. He sits there like this a lot because he thinks this makes him look smart, I think. And there's some. It's not very strong. It's not very strong. I was expecting something stronger. It's not a very good reply. He's had 10 hours to workshop the material. And Greta still comes out on top. But he also happens to have, for some reason, he gets some pizza boxes. It's like the fall. It's quite funny, actually. He put some pizza boxes in his video. And because of the pizza boxes, the authorities are able to find out where he is. And he gets arrested. All because he's such a strong man that he had to bait this teenage girl. And it's so funny. And as he's getting arrested, he's talking about the Matrix has got me. Oh no, the Matrix has me. And look, I know these people exist, and I'm not somebody who, I feel like the left get called, like, oh, they want to shut down debate and stuff. I actually think the left don't want to do that. That seems to me more like the liberal centre. But I just think there's such a delusion around these men, and a lot of people buy into it, right? They buy into the fact they're geniuses. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Glass Onion recently, and I actually really enjoyed it because it kind of got to the heart of the fact that these kind of billionaires, these guys who run these like pickup channels, these MRA things, they're like pretending to be so smart and people just go with it. But they're actually, if you actually look at what they're saying, it doesn't make any sense, right? And they're so sensitive. They're so sensitive. Like, if you call them out, they get so mad about it. They get so angry about it. I mean, if you look at Laurence Fox's rebrand, he's on GB News now. I don't really watch GB News, I didn't realise. But of course that's where he's going. It's where every reputable reporter wants to go. Of course. But they wear their suits now and they wear their glasses because now they're in an academic phase, right? We should listen to them for some reason, even though what they're saying doesn't make any sense. And it's so obvious that they're so fragile. And there's nothing wrong with being fragile, but don't then pretend that you're like embodying masculinity when you can't even win an online fight with a teenage girl, right? And I'm not saying that she should be lesser, but by your opinions, by your own worldview, that should be easy. So that was wonderful. Well done, Greta. I just thought that was very amusing. I just think it's like they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for more reaction. And I do think the best thing is to laugh, honestly. I know some of the stuff they say is shocking, but that's why they do it. I do think we have to laugh. And if we can, I think we should find some time to pity them if possible, because it's not something that happy people do. Something is lacking. They're not... It's just an odd way to live life, isn't it? It's amusing for us to watch. But anyway, yeah. So this is about anti-woke snowflakes, who are the biggest snowflakes of all, it would seem. And without fail, it's quite amusing. But anyway, I love you loads, and I will see you really soon for a new video. If you've got anything you want me to talk about, let me know. Put it in the description box, etc. I don't close my comments. It's fine to disagree with me. Whatever, you can, it's fine. Just don't be abusive. Share this if you like it. I'm trying to get my channel more regular. Also, for the podcast I do, which is like a left-leaning podcast, our newest New Year special is out now. The link to that will be in the description box. And it's about the top 10 centrist melts of 2022, which was fun. But yeah, I love you loads, and I'll see you soon. All right, love you. Bye.